Most leaders think power comes from being in charge, but real leadership is proven by how much power you're willing to give away. Empowerment is not about handing over tasks. It's about handing over trust, because we're not just teaching people how to do a job. We're teaching them how to think. I have a friend that called me up today. She listened to one of my episodes and she said, I'm thinking about what you did with your kids, where every year you gave them a new responsibility. And if you haven't heard it before, this is what we did. Every year, my kids basically leveled up. They leveled up to have more freedom. On their birthday, let's see here, when they turned 12 years old, we had this rule where you could keep your bedroom however you wanted to. So I would no longer be going in their room and telling them they needed to clean it up, that they need to make the bed, or any of that. They could keep their room however comfortable they desired, as long as they didn't have a bunch of dirty dishes in their room and their stuff didn't spill out into the house and stink up the house, and we didn't get any critters or bugs in their room, because we're not going there. Because I raised 3 boys. So I set up parameters, but I said, other than that, keep your room however you want it. And she said, I'm listening to that and I'm trying to figure out how I can do this. So she's got a daughter who is, I think she's about 12 years old, and she is having a hard time getting herself up and getting ready for school in the morning. And my friend just feels like out of control, has to just tell her every single step of the way. Get out of bed, brush your teeth. Did you pack your lunch? Did you put your homework in your bag? All the things, all the way, all the steps, has to tell her everything she has to do all the way until she goes to the bus stop. And she's like in control, in control, in control. And my friend is like, I just don't know if I can stop doing that. I just don't know if I can trust her to do it right. And I was like, your daughter already knows everything. She already knows all the stuff. You've already taught her everything that she needs to know. What happens if you stop helping her and you empower her instead? And my friend paused for a second and she goes, but what if she misses the bus? And I was like, so she misses the bus. She'll probably only miss it once. You set a consequence. If she misses the bus, what happens to her life? Now my friend has to take her to school, right? So now she's punished. And so I always like to say, well, if your decisions are going to affect my decisions, well, there's going to be a consequence in there, because if I'm being punished, then I want to make sure that it's steep. I don't want it to be so steep that it's like, oh, you're grounded for a month if you miss the bus. I want it to be like, oh, you missed the bus? Yeah, you got to do the dishes tonight, man. Because now I have to drive you to school and it's taking time out of my life, so you're going to do one of my tasks. And she's like, I just don't know if I can do it. It made me think about when my 2 youngest children, they both launched at the same time at 19. One went to college, one joined the military, and it was a little bit sooner than I had really thought that we were going to. And so it was really, really hard for me. So my husband and I ended up leading this Bible study. We read a book and decided that everyone we knew needed to read it. And in the study, he says, you cannot expect your children to know how far the town is if you carry them on your back. And he's basically saying you have to let them have some freedom to make decisions that are probably not going to be the ones that you want them to have. Now, we set natural consequences and boundaries within our home, and we try to just protect them as best as we can. But the reality is that they're going to make decisions, they're going to make choices. And sometimes it's not going to be the way you wanted it to be, but they're learning. Because at the end of the day, we're not trying to control every aspect of their life. We are trying to teach them and help them to grow so that they can make the best decisions, right? So it works in your leadership too, with your staff. If you want them to grow, you can't rescue them from every single problem that comes their way, and you cannot rescue them or tell them or micromanage them for every single detail, because what will happen is you won't ever have freedom. And I can tell you, this was really hard for me. When we first started our business, we started as a food truck, and I was the most efficient cook. I could cook 200 burgers in 45 minutes. I was very fast. I made us the most money. And so I always felt like I had to be the one that did the cooking. And then one summer, we had been super, super busy. And this motion, doing this all day long for 16 hours a day, eventually my arm just said, forget it. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm done. And I actually had like this flare up of a nerve thing, and I literally could not use my arm. I was in a sling. My arm just said, nope, we're not doing it anymore. And so I actually went and I tried to use my left arm to cook, and I couldn't do it. And my son, at the time, my middle son, I think he was probably about 17 years old, he was like, I can do it. And I was so reluctant. You should have seen me. It was really pathetic. I'm standing in front of the grill trying to flip things over and I couldn't do it. And he says, I really believe I can do it. And so I decided reluctantly, okay, we'll see how you do through the lunch rush. We would park with a whole bunch of other food trucks in this pod. And really, honestly, it was a game of rush. If you could get your line to move as fast as you possibly could, then you got more customers. And people that were on our 30-minute lunch break, they didn't want to wait 45 minutes for their food. They wanted it fast. They wanted it within 10 minutes. They wanted to be out the door. And so I sat in the window and I took orders and my son did all the cooking. And sure enough, he did excellent. He did a great job. After that moment in time, I still remember it to this day, I realized I don't have to be the one that does everything. And I was so grateful for that. And I want to say that I changed overnight and I became this wonderful boss that gave everyone empowerment and all of that. And I did not. It actually took me probably about 7 more years, maybe not that long. When we had opened up the restaurant, the brick and mortar, I was still doing all of the cooking. And it was another mentor of mine that said, hey, when you're cooking, you can't see what's coming. So you really can't manage your staff when you're on the grill. And it came because I was having a conversation with him and I was telling him how irritated I was because people will come to me while I'm cooking and they'll say, hey, I can't find the broom, or hey, where do I put the cilantro? And I would just be like, can you leave me alone? Do you not see what I'm doing here? And in the book E-Myth, he talks about how we have 3 roles within us. We are, as business owners, we are the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur. Which one do you think which role I was working in there? I was 100% just being a technician. And when I was a technician, I was not a good manager. And so this level of growth was such a necessary thing for me to learn in order to empower my staff, in order for them to become the best versions of themselves, and for us to become the rock star business that we are. We just got another award, and it's super cool. I have this wall of all these things that all these people that have voted for us of the best of, and it's not because I'm a rock star, which I used to be. But today, do you know where I'm at? I'm in my home office while I have 2 restaurants that are running themselves, and they're not running themselves because I'm a rock star. They're running themselves because my staff are freaking awesome rock stars. They're the ones that are the reason why we get those awards. And they are doing it because I trusted them. And that's the key. You can't empower people you don't trust. And you can't trust people that you never give a chance. So when my son cooked on that grill, he showed me it doesn't have to always be me. That's the heart of empowerment. You're not there to control every move. You're there to build thinkers. And people will always rise to the level that you trust them. That's not good. And people will rise to the level of trust that you give them. Now, I'm not just talking about dropping a task in their lap and walking away and expecting everything to go hunky-dory. Empowerment does not mean that you disappear. It means that you define success clearly. Let others find. It means that you define success clearly, and then you let other people find their way to get there. I call it freedom with framework. You create structure, clear expectations, resources, boundaries. Remember my kids, hey, you can keep your room any way you want it. But boundaries, right? Your room can't spill out into the house, no bugs, no critters, no dirty dishes. And then you step back. It's like giving someone a map. And then you say, here's where I want to go. I trust you to figure out how to get us there. Because micromanaging, it kills creativity. And that's what we want. We want people that take ownership, people that are thinking about how do we problem solve. And when people know the boundaries, they can move boldly within them. Because in reality, control is about fear. Empowerment is about faith. Think about my friend that is afraid to let her daughter get herself ready in the morning because she's afraid she's going to miss the bus. But what's the worst that could happen? She misses the bus. How many times is that going to happen before she learns? And the final thought that I want to give you is that empowerment builds ownership and confidence. When the first time that someone makes a decision on their own, it might not be perfect, but that's okay. Mistakes, that's where confidence grows. Every time we rush in to fix something, though, we are robbing them of their growth. Every time we hover, we tell them we don't believe in them. And every time we take it back from them because they did it wrong, we're stealing their confidence. Dan Martell says it this way: when you stop controlling, you start multiplying. Look at me. I got 2 restaurants that are successfully operating on their own, and I couldn't be happier or more proud. So this week, I want you to ask yourself this: who in your life do you need to stop rescuing and start empowering? What are you trying to control that's actually keeping someone else from growing? And what would happen if you gave up the power to control? Trust me, empowerment isn't easy. It's uncomfortable, but it's also how you raise leaders in your homes, in your business, and in ourselves. Because the goal isn't to build followers who depend on us. It's to build thinkers who can move forward with us. Build, encourage, train, trust, and reproduce. That's the better model. And that's how you lead a better life and build better leaders.